How's it going, my truant people? DrSlaking, the Slacking Doctor, back with another Draft League review, and today we are reviewing one of my favorite Pokemon in Keldeo. Now, if you haven't seen this series before, what I basically do is look back at a Pokemon I've drafted in Generation 8. I look back at some of the sample sets that I brought to some significant games. I talk about the team composition that I drafted it on and how I ran it, and then I give my verdict on whether I think that Pokemon's worth drafting or best left alone. You may already have got a spoiler from the fact I said one of my favorite Pokemon in Keldeo. Yeah, I love this thing, and it's no secret that I love this thing. It's a big meme in my front office because no one else loves this thing. But I'm hoping in this video I can kind of explain why, despite all of its drawbacks, and we will touch on those, Keldeo is still a good doggo, as I nickname it. So I'm excited for this one. If you guys are new, please do consider subscribing. I would recommend checking out the rest of my Draft League reviews as well. They're pretty interesting, in my opinion, guides on the metagame and certain Pokemon. And we have a subscriber Discord linked down in the description. We're growing around here. You guys have been phenomenal on the support recently, so if you could continue that, leave a like, comment, and all that good stuff, I'd be very grateful. Right. Housekeeping out of the way, let's talk about Keldeo. Now, I'm going to be looking off the side here at my second monitor to make the graphics appear. I live edit, I'm lazy, what can I say? So, let's talk a little bit about Keldeo. Keldeo is famously got short coverage, and as I say that, I realize how loud the music in my headphones is. Whew. It has famously like shallow move pool. It really just has stab and then historically had Icy Wind or Hidden Power as its coverage move. Now that changed in Generation 8 with the removal of Hidden Power but the addition of Air Slash. So this is a reason that a lot of people hate Keldeo. When you look at its base stats, it has a great speed tier for Draft League play. There's a lot of times where this will be the fastest one on people's team or there or thereabouts. Certainly as a Scarfer and stuff like that, it will outspeed a lot of your opponent's Scarfers. Then special attack stat, pretty damn high. 129 is not bad at all. Bulk 90, 90, 90, or 91, 90, 90. Pretty solid actually. Decently bulky, and I'm going to get into that. Physical attack 72, not great. And that's where we get into what it is that people dislike about Keldeo. If I'm to categorize here on Showdown by physical move and then sort by base power, because you could get Impact, Close Combat, Mega Horn, Stone Edge, Superpower, Sacred Sword. I didn't know that was actually classified. Oh no, Sacred Sword. I'm getting confused there. Liquidation, Bounce, Poison Jab, X Scissor. So you Smart Strike, Flip Turn, of course, another new addition to it recently, Aqua Jet. So decent physical move pool. For a grass fighting type, the common checks to you are going to be fairies, psychics, water fighting type. The common checks to you are going to be psychics, fairies, grasses, and other bulky waters. They're going to be the most common checks to you, maybe dragons to some extent. Well, you have coverage for a lot of those with things like Mega Horn, Poison Jab, I think we saw X Scissor there, Smart Strike. So you would have coverage for the things that wall you like grass, psychics, and fairies specifically. Not so much for the bulky waters, but you'd have close combat for that. And then on the setup side, it also gets access to Sword Stance. So I think one of the reasons that people don't like Keldeo is because its move pool suggests it should be a physical attacker. It has all of the coverage it could possibly want as a physical attacker, similar to something like Terrakion, right? One of the Sword of Justice partners to this thing. Has all those moves, but it can actually make use of them, where Keldeo, with that measly 72 attack stat, really can't. And it doesn't have access to Nasty Plot either. It does have Calm Mind, which is something, but it's not like the Sword Stance kind of instant double boost that you would get with Nasty Plot. So I think compared to its Swords of Justice brothers, sometimes it gets a bit of a hard time because its move pool isn't suited to its actual stats. Now, that's when you're talking about coverage. I would argue, and I have argued this for a very long time, Pokemon do not need coverage if A, they are supported in the right way, and B, they have the right stats to support their lack of coverage. And C, they have the right matchup, of course. But what do I mean by that? Well, something like Porygon Z. If we look at Porygon Z here, just to give an example, this thing hits so damn hard with 135 special attack and adaptability giving it a 1.5 times boost. It doesn't matter that its move in Tri-Attack is relatively low base power, at 80 base power. It doesn't matter if it doesn't have coverage. Now, as it happens, Porygon Z does. But you don't need to click it, right? It doesn't have, I don't believe, any fighting coverage at all. So this thing can't hit like a pure Steel type. Let's say you're playing a Registeel. You can't hit Registeel unless you click like Thunderbolt or Shadow Ball or Dark Pulse, right? But you don't need it because you just click Specs Tri-Attack and you wear that shit down over time. If you play it well enough and you support it well enough, let's say you partner it with a Magnezone, then hey, suddenly this thing wrecks shop. And I feel the exact same way about Keldeo. With Keldeo's impressive special attack stat, its impressive speed, It has the stats and its bulk as well, because it's decently bulky. You can play it aggressively enough to break through your own checks without coverage. You don't need to instantly... Something like Terrakion, if Clefable comes in on Terrakion, you click Swords Dance, you probably only get like 2 attacks before you're dead to Moonblast at best. Keldeo doesn't play it like that. Keldeo can tank some hits, with Calm Mind boosting its special defense especially. It can really tank some hits and apply offensive pressure for more than one turn. It isn't a one and done mon. It's let's keep throwing it in, throwing it in, throwing it in, wear down your opponent over time. If we look at the moves that it wants to run as well, from Hydro Pump to Surf, decently high base power moves. Hydro Pump especially, 110 base power. Just gotta land your attacks. And hey, who doesn't land their attacks, right? Good players land their moves. It's fine. Even on its weaker moves like Scold, great chance of a secondary effect that will support your team. So that's not bad. Then if we get onto its other attacks, Focus Blast. A lot of people want to talk about not running Focus Blast because they're afraid of missing. Well, build your team in a way where landing is a bonus, missing won't ruin you the game, won't lose you the game. That's kind of how I try to see Keldeo, is that Keldeo is never, when I bring it to a game, very often my win con. Certainly, I am never playing for a Focus Blast endgame, because if I'm doing that, then I'm basically saying, well, I only have a 70% chance of winning this match. So you can play it differently to that. You don't have to, like, it's there for when you need to click it. It's an emergency button, but you shouldn't play your game around Focus Blast. And then on top of that, it has this move, which changes everything. If you don't know, Secret Sword, as it says here, despite being a special attack, damages on the physical side. What that means is that, hey, let's say you want to bring your Tapu Fini against me. Your Tapu Fini doesn't have any reliable recovery. Are you going to build it Fizdef to be able to take my Secret Swords? Or are you going to build it Spadef to be able to take my Hydro Pumps? Your Vaporeon, do you want to resist my Focus Blast? Or not resist my Focus Blast, but be tanky on the special side for my Focus Blast? Or do you want to be tanky on the physical side for my Secret Sword? So just that one move, in my opinion, is what makes Keldeo great. It's okay base power at 85, 100% chance accurate, and a chance to land is what I'm trying to say, a chance accurate, you know what I mean. And it really forces that prep where it's like Infernape has this, where you never know which side Infernape's going to hit you on. That's the same with Keldeo with Secret Sword. It just forces that little bit extra prep in your opponent's mind. So that's why I think this move pool doesn't really matter too much. With the addition of Air Slash, it's something for bulky bugs, bulky grasses. It isn't crazy good, but it's okay. And the fact that it already had Icy Wind means that losing Hidden Power Ice isn't the worst thing in the world for it in certain matchups. So in general, I think Keldeo, and in Draft League, of course, if you're facing a Tapu Bulu, you can tech Poison Jab on there if you want to. If you're facing a Whimsicott, you can tech Poison Jab on there in Draft League. So I think it has more options than people want to make out. And we're going to see a little bit of that because it also has some important support moves, which I've used historically to balance it out. Now, you might wonder why I have good Doggo and bad Doggo. You got to use this one with the horn. If you can get Secret Sword on it, you can use the Resolute form with the big horn. I think it's the other reason people don't like Keldeo. A lot of people just hate its design. They think it's not My Little Pony clone. But I genuinely think this design with the plumage, the horn, looks great. I think it's a fantastic design. This one... Now, when you're running this, you have to have Secret Sword, so it does reveal some of your set, but I don't give a shit. I still run it anyway, so people know when I'm not running Secret Sword because I have to have this one, but otherwise, you'll always see me using this because it just looks better. That isn't relevant to our competitive analysis, so that's just me voicing my opinion. Justified, pretty much a useless ability on this unless you're running Physical Keldeo. Don't ever run Physical Keldeo. Don't ever run it. It's just not good. You can run mixed with like Poison Jab coverage in Draft League, but don't bring purely Physical. It's not good. Anyway, let's look at the teams that I drafted this thing on because that is going to be significant. So, this was the very end of Gen 7, but I want to talk about it very briefly because it illustrates some of the things that I think Keldeo does well. I don't have sets or replays for this because it's Gen 7, but I just want to briefly mention it. This was my Owl team where I didn't have a great season, but as a team we went on to win the championship. So this was a championship winning team. On this team, I actually think I've got the crops a little bit wrong, so let's clean that up for a second. How's that look? I think that looks better. We had Mega Lati, we had Weavile, and what we had there was an impressive Dark Psychic Fighting core. And that's something that Keldeo loves. If you're prepping against this team, are you trying to check Mega Lati? Are you trying to check Weavile? Are you trying to check Magnezone? Are you trying to check PC? Are you trying to check Feraligatr? Like, there's a lot of wall breakers on this team that stretches prep. And particularly that Feraligatr and that Weavile. Let's talk about those. Because let's say your Keldeo check is a Milotic. Why not? It's a good Keldeo check. It's a bulky water type. I'd argue I'll run sub Calm Mind on it if you don't bring Haze. But that's by the by. It's a decent bulky water and people will use it as a Keldeo check. Well, Now how would you check for Alligator too? Because I'm going to bring in for Alligator, I'm going to click Swords Dance, and I'm going to try and muscle your Milotic down to 30%, and then I'm going to bring my Keldeo in with Specs Focus Blast, and I'm going to claim a KO, right? So it can do this thing where with the right team support that break things for it, it will do fantastically. Weavile, again, is another Pokemon that bulky waters love to check. Most teams don't have great ice resist. It's one of the most rare offensive typing, but most effective offensive typings in Draft League. So when you're coming up against a Weavile, again, you might want to bring your Milotic to try and check the Weavile. Well, I'm going to knock off your leftovers, or I'm going to knock off your Flame Orb, but now you don't check my Keldeo as well, or I'm going to Swords Dance up with that, and I'm going to try and muscle through you. So I paired this thing with good speed options with Weavile and Megalati, and I paired it with good wall breaking options with double Swords Dance physical breakers that pressure the same things that Keldeo pressures on the special side for Alligator, and Weavile pressure on the physical or special side. Like physical side more so. For Alligator, you can do mix, but not really. So they pressure on the physical side, where Keldeo on the special side. Again, bulky grasses, Weavile beats them all the time. For Alligator, pressures them and forces them in earlier than they want to be on the field. So again, it's this thing of like looking at your team and how does your offense synergize? People will look at this and they'll say, oh my god, he had double water. How can you have double offense water? Keldeo and Feraligatr are walled by the same things, bulky grasses and bulky waters. If you play a Tapu Fini or if you play a Tapu Bulo, you're just going to lose with that offensive core. No, I'm going to sack my Feraligatr for 80% on your Tapu Bulu, and then Keldeo is going to ruin your whole team. Sometimes it's okay to double up to apply that offensive pressure, and that's something that I've been trying to reinforce across all of these kind of analysis videos. Moving on to the second team I used it on, as we'll get rid of that in the background. This is my PTL team. Now, PTL isn't a league, I'll be honest. Jack runs it. I love Jack. Shout out to Jack. But it isn't a league that I've been super serious with. He knows this. It's just my kind of... What I tend to do is I tend to have one league that I'm super competitive in, and then I play in 4 or 5 other leagues on the side where it's just me playing mons. It's like going to football training. You play your 90-minute match on a Sunday, and you go to training all week, otherwise you won't be sharp. That's how I kind of view my other leagues, and really, to be honest with you, they're leagues that I want to be a part of the community in because I love the community. And that's the case with PTL. Jack's my boy, so I want it to be in there for him. So that's really how it is, but I won't pretend that this team has been super competitive like the Owl team I just showed was. But if we look at this draft, Aegislash, Megazam, Gliscor, Keldeo, Rotom Wash, Tyranitar, Miltank, Whimsicott, Macargo, Beedrill, Diglett. Now, let's talk about Dark, Fighting, Psychic, Offensive cores. Tyranitar, Mega Alakazam, Keldeo. You can hate on Tyranitar without Pursuit as much as you want, but if I'm bringing Banded T-Tar Crunch, Mega Alakazam with Future Sight, I spammed a lot and it's really good, and then Keldeo, that is a hard core to handle because they all beat each other's checks. Tyranitar loves coming in on the fat Psychics and clicking Banded Crunch. Alakazam loves pressuring the fat dark types and loves having Keldeo to beat them for it. So they really all work together. That's how you form an offensive core. You look at the things, fire, water, grass is the most common core. Why? It's the starter trio, right? We know that Charmander beats Bulbasaur, Bulbasaur beats Squirtle, Squirtle beats Charmander. We know that little triangle works. But those triangles are common throughout Pokemon. You could look at Fairy Dragon Steel is the famous one, otherwise Fighting Psychic Dark is another one, but you can make them with all sorts of things. You could probably make them with like Fighting Flying Bug, but not really, but you know what I mean. You can start to form triangles with a bunch of things if you want to. This is one that I love to spam, especially with Keldeo, because here we had great speed options in Mega Alakazam. We had great setup options in Tyranitar with DD, Aegislash with Swords Dance, Macargo with Shell Smash. We had things to trap with Diglett, which is pretty fun. We had like good pivots with things like Whimsicott, Rotom Wash. And again, let's talk about Rotom Wash. Let's say you have a Tapu Fini on your team, right? I throw in my Keldeo, I click Spec Secret Sword, you take 30%, you come in, you get leftovers, fine. I pivot out into my Whimsicott, and I take nothing from your Surf, and I Moonblast you back, or I Energy Ball you back. I pivot into my Rotom Wash, and I click Volt Switch. And what does Rotom Wash force in on those Volt Switches? Ground types, yes, but not really, because you have the water typing, so they're not safe. Electric types, maybe, but specifically grass types. Rotom Wash, more than almost any other Pokemon, baits in grass types. What does Keldeo love having worn down? Grass types. So every time you throw in your grass type on a Volt Switch from Rotom that, hey, maybe it does 15%. Maybe you take Stealth Rocks for a little bit more. Then you have to switch out the next turn because I'm going to bring in my Beedrill, my Cargo. This team didn't have the best things to pressure grass types, but I could bring in my Mega Alakazam, which will beat most grass types, right? So you can do things like that. I can bring in my Miltank to get rocks up, to get whatever, to start spamming Body Slam for paralysis. You can do things with this. This team isn't perfect because I would be better off with a better offensive Grass Breaker, better flying type or something. Gliscor can do it to some extent, but not really. That was one flaw in this draft that I definitely would want to improve. But the principle of something like Rotom Wash plus Keldeo still stands, where you can still get this kind of vortex of bringing it in on a bulky water, which Keldeo likes to have things to come in on bulky waters, then Volt Switching to chip down the bulky grass, which Keldeo likes things chipping down bulky grasses. So they're the kind of teams that I partnered it on, the offensive cores I used it on, the team support that it likes to have. Let's look at the actual sets that I brought, which is probably the thing that most of you come to these videos for, I'm sure. So the first one we're playing against is Ellie, Jack's girlfriend. Really lovely person. I got a lot of time for Ellie. And this game we lost. So this was not a game where I played especially well. It's kind of one where I got shafted, to be honest with you. But it's important because Keldeo went crazy in this game. And it's in a matchup where you would say, really? So I don't have Ellie's team, unfortunately, because she dropped from the league and was replaced, and Galadite, who joined, another good friend of mine, made trades, so we don't have access to Ellie's original team, so I don't have graphics for that. But what I do have is the replay from the game, so we're going to get into that in just a second. But I brought specs here with double stab on the water side, then fighting stab, and air slash. Just a generic EV spread, right? Just a bit in HP, as much speed as I needed to outspeed whatever it was I wanted to outspeed, maybe Zapdos or something, and then the rest in special attack. Everything. Max special attack, timid. Just generic EV spread, right? Why was I so confident just running a generic spread? And why was I so content to run specs in a game where I was coming up against an Araquanid, right? Araquanid on paper, and this is the importance of air slash in Generation 8, and obviously we are looking at this from a Generation 8 perspective. Why was I so confident running specs? Because you look at this team, I click air slash once on the Araquanid switch in. Game over. Keldeo gets a KO every single time it hits the field after that. All I've got to do is make one ballsy play, and this game's as good as Keldeo's, right? And we're going to see that a little bit in the game. So, looking at the matchup, Keldeo can potentially come in on things like Nidoqueen to pressure it because it does have decent 90-90-90 bulk. It can come in and take some hits from things. Can potentially come in on a Cinderace that's like, say, Scarf Cinderace into Pyro Ball or some shit like that, right? We use the bulky Salamence in this game. Out comes the Nidoqueen, and bang, I'm straight into my Keldeo because what are you clicking there? You're maybe clicking Ice Beam on the Salamence if I stay in. You're probably clicking Stealth Rocks because looking at your team composition, it's your only rocker. I have things that get worn down with Stealth Rocks, so makes some sense. But even if you click Thunderbolt, I'm living it, right? I've got enough bulk to take that, and now we have this choice where do you have a switch into me? Are you going to go hard Araquanid? If I call that and I click specs air slash, are you just going to get dropped? Now, as it happens, I don't have any balls this turn, and I actually just click the surf. It isn't water absorb Araquanid, which is good information to have. It means it is water bubble, and I get off a decent 25%. It's heavy duty boots, I assume, because this is Gen 8. Hey, look, I've got 75% and that's there to stay. But I know now, you're not Pasho Berry Nidoqueen. You're not trying to bring some, like, Mandibuzz to wall me. And now we get in the Mandibuzz to Toxic, so it can't wall me. This is as good as Keldeo's now, right? All I've got to do is get the right turn at the right time with Keldeo, and we're in a good spot. It gets a little bit tricky here because I don't manage to defog away webs, which I really need to defog away webs. It would have been better if I'd hard air slash with Keldeo, but we'll ignore that for a second. I scout for the flamethrower here, going back into Keldeo. Ellie thinking I'll scout with my Salamence for the flamethrower. Makes a really aggressive play and clicks on Ice Beam. Pretty fire play, to be fair. If I'd have gone Salamence, that would have been dope, and I don't blame them for it because they couldn't really do a lot to Keldeo anyway. I get Keldeo in, and even under webs, you know what's coming. I've seen what the dedicated switching is. I'm just clicking air slash. And because I have a decent speed tier, even under webs, I'm going to outspeed walls. So I'm not like one of these mid-tier speed things like, I don't know, maybe a Feraligatr that maybe wouldn't have outsped there, right? So I'm still going to outspeed even under webs. Now look at this game. Now look at my specs Hydro Pump. Now look at my specs Surf, right? It's looking pretty good. We're going to go on hyper fast here because I kind of misplay around this Mew for a little while. I go into Alakazam thinking I'll outspeed it under webs. I didn't. And I force it out with the Salamence in the end. Scouting its coverage, thinking maybe it can't beat down Salamence. But we're just going to play this through here. That Mew really put me on the back foot, losing my Alakazam and then Scissor before I could defog. Not good for me. I'm going to get in Beedrill here to defog. Yes, this is regular Beedrill. I don't know. I was drunk. Let's just say that. Gonna drop it here because now I can allow my Beedrill to go down there to Cinderace because as soon as that goes down, I get a KO. Keldeo's gonna have to go crazy in this game. I've probably lost anyway, but it's my only chance, right? It's my only chance. You can see that Spec Surf doing 45 to the Mandibuzz. We got the Toxic on the Mandibuzz. You can't wall me. If I'd clicked Hydro Pump, it would have smashed that anyway. Here I'm gonna go into Heatran on this. You might think, why? Like, why just sack the Heatran? It looked like Hydro Pump was maybe a roll to KO. And I needed my health to be able to take like a Pyro Ball from Cinderace, which I don't know if I had already seen the set on Cinderace. I knocked off its Scarf. I think I just needed it to take a hit from Cinderace, my HP. I think that's what it was. And it looked as though Hydro Pump would be a roll to kill. And I'm actually able to get off some damage with Heatran here, which really means that Hydro Pump is going to do the job. And that means I'm not going to take any damage from the Cinderace. Mew's at 49. Look, Nidoqueen's there. So if you look at this, if it's not Mach Punch, and if Mach Punch doesn't put me in range of whatever Cinderace has now, if it's U-turn Cinderace can come in, U-turn on me like 3 times and just win the game. But if it's not U-turn Cinderace, then it has to land a Pyro Ball at the end anyway, I think. But I'm just trying to play this end game out, where basically Keldeo can 1v4 here depending on sets, and that's crazy. Like, that shows the strength of this thing. Unfortunately, I missed the Hydro Pump. Now, I could have just Surfed maybe and got away with it. I don't know if Surf would have killed. Maybe I should have Surfed, but we missed the Hydro Pump. Gets the Drain Punch damage off, which is exactly what I didn't want to happen, is why I sacked the Heatran. We crit the next Hydro Pump, which doesn't really matter because it was my HP I wanted. Out comes the Cinderace, and it reveals to be U-turn. It's going to slowly chip me down. I'm not sure. It might have been able to do enough anyway. But you can see the point here. Keldeo still did good work. Keldeo still put in the finest of work. Maybe another U-turn there would have done another 12. Depends on the Pyro Ball damage. We might have been able to win that if we landed our Hydro Pump. So, yes, this is exactly what I was talking. You don't want to play the game to the point where your win con is Hydro Pump or Focus Blast. You don't. But if we had landed them all there, we might have won the game. And it shows you how useful that can be in certain scenarios when I had played badly, but I still had an out with Keldeo despite playing badly. So, yeah, and Keldeo picked up 4 KOs in that game. It was the only one to get a KO in that game. It went crazy, and it shows you had I played better, just getting that one prediction on Araquanid meant that Keldeo got a KO every single time it hit the field, which is nice. Very nice. Next set we've got, it was versus Lux, a player I respect hugely. Very, very, very good player. I think he 6-0'd week 1. I lost to Ellie week 1. You've just seen that. This was week 2. So, yeah, he's on form. I was all kind of out of sorts around this time. I think this is around the time I started uploading Showdown Lives again to brush up. And we have a pretty cool set here. So we have really low base power moves in Scald and Icy Wind. Only base 80 and 55. Like, they're weak moves on an offensive mon. We're not max special attack. And this is actually a inefficient EV spread because, like I said, I wasn't super invested in the competitive side of PTL. What I should have done here, if you look 172, 159, if we just put this up to 159 by going modest, I actually could have had 173 instead of 172. So slightly inefficient EV spread. Shit happens, right? It's not the end of the world. It doesn't really matter too much. Either way, this is a spread we bought. I could have got 1 extra EV. It just shows you that, like, by putting the nature in the higher base stat where you can, you will get more returns for it. So that's why that EV spread is inefficient, because the special attack is higher than the attack by some noticeable difference. Regardless, I wanted to talk about the support move pull on Keldeo early in the video. This is what I'm talking about. Between Taunt, Calm Mind, Endeavor, does it get Encore as well? Roar? I don't think it gets Encore, right? It doesn't. But still, between Taunt, Sub, Calm Mind, Roar, you have a decent supportive move pool to do things with Keldeo beyond just spam your dual stabs. And you've seen in that game against Ellie how good spamming your dual stabs can be. But you might want something else in other matchups. And against a player like Lux, who you're about to see, I do have his team here. He plays pretty bulky. I've got all these crops all wrong. I thought I adjusted all of these. Man, my graphics game today. Because we can make that a little bit bigger, right? Maybe we can't. Anyway, you can see here against his team, he has things like Mega Scissor, which usually can kind of wall. It has a Zapdos, which if I move my head, you can see. Which way do I move my head? That way? You can see can kind of wall, right? If it's built correctly. Even things like Spiritomb could be a problem to a choice locked set. So Rillaboom, decent bulky grass that will take the secret sword hits just fine. So I really had to build this thing. Dragalge as well, resist both stabs. So this is a game where you might look at it, you might be like, well, Keldeo doesn't have the best matchup. But actually, Scald plus Icy Wind hits everything on my opponent's team for at least neutral damage. And I can burn things like Mega Scissor, which is amazing. I can burn things like Rillaboom, which is amazing. I can burn things like Zapdos, which gets residual chip on it. Amazing. I can burn something like Dragalge, not crazy, but useful, and I can Icy Wind through it potentially too, because I can keep Calm Minding up on that special attacker. I'm hard to revenge kill if I'm Calm Minded up as well, because things like Zapdos and Azelf tend to be very specially based, and they're going to want to revenge kill me. They're going to be the primary revenge killers. So, unless it's like Scarf Rillaboom, which against my team didn't necessarily make a ton of sense, you're really actually going to struggle to revenge kill my Keldeo. So again, just showing that kind of bulky set here. I can also taunt a Zapdos on its roost if I want to keep the damage on it, which could be very useful if I predict it right. And I can taunt a Mega Scissor that wants to roost on me too. So I can actually come in on Mega Scissor pretty nicely as well, with all this bulk especially. So you can see here by building it kind of tanky with the setup opportunity, this thing can become a really nice wall breaker in this game. It isn't going to be the same sweeper, but it could be a really good wall breaker here. So let's jump into this game, which I believe is here. Yep, here we go. If we jump into this game and see how it plays out, you can see just a team preview against my opponent's team. Scald Burn doesn't want it. Icy Wind doesn't want it. Scald Burn doesn't want it. This is probably the best thing against me, but we'll see how that plays out. Scald Burn doesn't really want it a lot of the time, also just doesn't want to take a Scald full stop particularly. Scald Burn doesn't want it particularly. So you can kind of see Scald in this matchup looking fantastic with the Icy Wind coverage too, pretty nice. So we're going to intimidate the Azelf, just goes for a U-turn. Potential like Sash Boom lead Azelf was in my head, I didn't really know, I just wanted to get off a Draco Meteor, get as much damage as possible. Obviously again, this team was pre-trades, so I've got stuff like Salamence and Palisand, which I don't have on the draft that you saw, but I made trades during the season, so that's why they're there. But out comes the Vigoroth, ooh, woo, Vigoroth. And in comes the Swampert. Again, we're going to see Keldeo's bulk come into play here, as yet again I get it in on the Rocks play. And this is the thing, if you draft Keldeo, play it aggressive. I joke all the time about playing with your nads out, about putting your balls on the table and letting your opponents see them. If you draft Keldeo, you need to do that. You need to play this thing fiercely. You can't be passive with a Keldeo because it does have the bulk to be played that way. Those base 90 defenses will be enough to switch in on passive or relatively bulky / passive Pokemon. Swampert I wouldn't call passive, but it's not going to be super invested in attack very often. So we get it in here. This thing's getting worn down. I'm just going to Calm Mind up. If it's a special set, it's not going to do too much. Gets a Toxic off on me. I don't really mind that. I'm going to easily 2-hit KO this thing with Scald now. I'm not going to get too greedy. +1 Calm Mind is enough to do big damage as he reveals Scald is his only offensive move. Super nice. And this is really abusing the passivity of his Swampert here. Okay, we've taken a lot of Toxic Chip. I would have preferred that didn't happen. Had I been sub over Taunt in this game, oof. If I had been sub over Taunt in this game, this would have been looking so bad because I could have subbed up on that Toxic turn. He wouldn't have been able to break me with his Scald. He clearly didn't have Roar. I could have kept Calm Minding up. Ugh. Nevertheless, I went for Taunt to taunt the Mega Scissor and the Zapdos, and I still stand by that prep. Zapdos comes out, and you're going to see here, even though it outspeeds me because I obviously didn't speed creep it on my set, we're still going to chew that Thunderbolt because of our bulk and our +1 special defense. Remember, Zapdos isn't weak. And we're going to get off a nice 53 with Icy Wind, and we're going to make him slower than me, which would have been nice if we weren't Toxic. But it just shows you the added benefit of having Icy Wind, right? That's how useful it can be. So in this game, this particular Keldeo set did a really good job of taking out the Swampert early. Now when I defog, Rocks are gone forever. And for applying offensive pressure to the Zapdos. And it shows you had I built it slightly differently with Sub, it would have gone crazy in this game. As it happens for the rest of the game, this does come, that damage on Zapdos turns out to be very important. You'll see why. I go out into my Palisand on his Scissor, and I'm getting super worn down here. He gets a Hurricane off as I get a Toxic off. And now this is really, really nice because I need my Palisand in this matchup for things like the Mega Scissor and the Vigoroth. Palisand is so good in this game. I need it around for later in the game. once I've got a Toxic off on him, that damage from Keldeo earlier is going to force the Zapdos to roost here. So you might think, well, none of that damage that you got on Zapdos turned out to matter. It was all gone by turn 15. But actually it did matter, because it allowed me to get a Toxic on the Zapdos, then force it to roost, which allowed me to get recovery on my Palossand. If he'd been at full health there, my Palossand wouldn't have stayed healthy, and I would have lost this game. My defensive backbone would have been broken by Zapdos plus Scissor. But it isn't here, because of that damage Keldeo got off, forcing the roost on the Zapdos. So that early game breaking, even though I didn't keep up the offensive pressure to maintain the damage on Zapdos, turned out to be so crucial in the long game here. And we do go on to win this game with our defensive core. So again, I just want to stress, okay, Keldeo traded 1-for-1 in this game, but it did so much more in opening the game up for my defensive spine, and it can do that on a team like this, on a build like this, which is really what I would describe as a bulky offense build with things like Salamence, Tyranitar, Heatran, even balanced, to be honest, borderline balanced bulky offense. So yeah, again, Keldeo just doing the work to open up the game for the rest of its teammates. Team player, Keldeo. Last set we have here. This is going to be my longest Draft League review ever, I think. I fucking love Keldeo, though, so no regrets. The last one we have to look at here, or the last team we have to look at here, was against Jim and his Chandelurians, which, again, is covered by my head. I don't know what I did wrong here, but anyway. You can see his team, he picked up the Salamence that I dropped, so we're on to the final weeks here where I'd made my trades, or on to the later part of the season where I'd made my trades. You can see the set here, it's just a standard Choice Scarf. Again, like, I put some in bulk, I'd put some in physical attack, I think, so that I could switch in on Crocodile more easily and Melmetal more easily, so that's why I'd slightly put more in physical attack. It really doesn't matter that much. It's just the way I built this particular set. Scald, Secret Sword, Icy Wind, Toxic. Now, you might think, like, that's a weird Scarf set. Why run that? Well, at +1, I can outrun a Dragon Dance Salamence and kill him with Icy Wind. So even if he DDs up with my Choice Scarf, I'm a Revenge Killer Salamence, and my draft hated Salamence. So I was like, I need that. I need that to stop, like, Scarf Moxie Salamence sweeping me, DD Moxie Salamence sweeping me, any of those shits, like, popping off. So great speed control instantly from Keldeo. Then with the combination of Skull plus Secret Sword, when I come in on Crocodile, it's very hard to predict which stab I'm going to go for and pivot accordingly. Yes, he has Breloom, yes, he has Clefable, but he has to get the play right. Also, if he wants to bring something like Unaware Clefable, which you might do against my team with things like Calm Mind Keldeo potential, and I get a burn on you, that's going to be residual damage, which is amazing. Calm Mind Alakazam, I have a bunch of setup on this team, so it's very, very possible DD Tyranitar. It's very possible that's going to be Unaware Clefable. I can also take one hit from Chandelure with my natural bulk and pivot in on that thing. If it's clicking a specs like Shadow Ball, I'll take one and then apply offensive pressure. So again, it's just this thing of like, and if it's Scarf, I'll definitely take one and I'll outspeed it afterwards. So it's this thing of being just so useful against my opponent's team. Having such, even though like he has good resistances in Breloom, in Clefable, in Salamence, which resists both of my stabs. Why would I bring Scarf against a team with a Salamence? Because I'm confident of my end game with this Pokemon. Salamence isn't generally a mon that is around by the end game unless it's winning the end game, and it sure as hell isn't winning the end game against Scarf Keldeo if I play it right. So my end game here to clean up, and Slowking as well, of course, Slowking as well, which I have the Toxic on to pop a Toxic on Slowking if I want to predict that. So I'm really saying in this game, like, I don't care that you have checks to Keldeo. I have faith that the rest of my build will break them down, and I'll still clean you with Scarf Keldeo at the end. And we're going to jump into the game and see why. So he doesn't bring the Slowking. Between Breloom, Clefable, and Salamence, I can kind of understand it. I can kind of understand thinking, well, Keldeo, if it comes, probably has something to beat Slowking, and I have so many threats to Slowking. I have Mega Alakazam, which could potentially Calm Mind up on Slowking. I have Aegislash, which will come in on Slowking and do big damage with like Banded Shadow Claws and stuff, which his team does not like switching in on. I have Rotom Wash, which can come in on Slowking and get momentum every time. I have Tyranitar, which if it's banded can potentially come in on a Volt Switch or something like that from Rotom, or a double and really apply offensive pressure, and he doesn't really switch in that great to Tyranitar. So there are a bunch of reasons why in this game I feel like Slowking doesn't have the greatest matchup, and I can understand him not bringing it. That being said, I'm looking at this and I'm like, alright, if I'm right and Salamence wants to try and win the game early on or mid-game, wants to be a wall breaker mid-game or something like that, then I'm going to be in a great spot with my Keldeo come the late game. I can potentially sweep you with any number of moves in this late game. You're fighting weak team. You have one, I think this thing's finally weak, right? It's normal dark, yeah. 1, 2, 3 fighting weak mons. Okay, 2 good resistances, but, you know, potentially I can Secret Sword sweep you. So we're going to put this thing on fast and play it out. I lead off with Keldeo here, potentially just pressuring out a Sash lead Crocodile. Again, if he knocks me off and I lose my Scarf, I will be in a bit of a bad spot for that Salamence, but I'll play the rest of the game accordingly, and I'll factor that in. But if I can force out the Crocodile into the Breloom and burn the Breloom, that's going to be incredible for me. So unfortunately, I don't get the burn. I go out into my Gliscor, and this thing does so much damage as he gets 4 Bullet Seeds, and I just sack my Gliscor, which is not great. It's not great, completely not great, but I'm going to be able to get in my Aegislash here and double straight back out into Keldeo, predicting the Crocodile being his Aegislash switching. So again, this is where I'm talking about you being able to be aggressive with Keldeo, because there's no way he's clicking Bullet Seed again with this Breloom. He might go for like a Spore or something at best, but I think he was banded from the... Oh no, he was poison. Was he? No, he wasn't poison heal. So yeah, I think he was banded from the damage on Gliscor. So he's never staying in to click Bullet Seed on my Aegislash. No one does that. He's always going to go to either Crocodile or possibly Melmetal, and I'm going to pressure both of those with my Keldeo. So I'm able to make that aggressive double there and really catch him out. I'm just going to hit that Scald again because I want to burn that Breloom if I can. I burn the Clefable, which is great information because it shows that it's not Magic Guard, which means my Sand's going to wear it down, my Burn's going to wear it down, and that's exactly what I was talking about earlier in the game. You want to be able to do that. As he reveals to be unaware, and my Psychic does a shit ton. And again, because of that offensive pressure from Keldeo, putting this down at 56, he has to soft-boiled here, right? He can't attack because then he'll die to the next Scald. Because of my natural bulk, I won't die to one Moonblast. So I know he only has one play. He only ever has one play, and that's soft-boiled. So I'm going to get in my best Mon against your team, the one that I drafted first overall in the draft, because Mega Alakazam is crazy. It's crazy. And I'm going to hit that Psychic for a nice 57 on your Clefable. And now you've got to try and do something. You're going to go into your Crocodile. I'm going to click the Shadow Ball, just covering that play, and then I'm going to hit the Focus Blast, and we land Focus Blast around here. Through the Chopal Berry, we kill it. So strong. You can see there, just those turn of events, that one double from Aegislash into Keldeo opened up that whole turn of events that removed the Crocodile, which now means my Keldeo isn't getting knocked off, which is nice, but it also means my Alakazam is free to click Psychic for the rest of the game. So it really shows you like how you can use that to open up sort of opportunities for yourself by thinking about your team synergy, and we really got to see the Fighting Psychic Dark core in action there. As I go out here into my Tyranitar on the Facade, and then straight back into Rotom on the Double Iron Bash to keep getting... Melmetal's a threat, man. You got to make plays around Melmetal. What can you do? It's a Melmetal. You got to do something, right? So we managed to break down the Melmetal there, as this thing just goes for a knockoff, and I think we Volt Switch out. Bringing back in Alakazam, which, oh, I guess this is Dark, so I couldn't click Psychic, but I think I have Dazzling Gleam, right? As he reveals to be the Quick Feet, which I didn't expect, so I then have to sack my Rotom, but that's fine. As we're getting Keldeo here, click Scald. It's another KO. Had he gone out into the Clefable, it would have died. I don't know if that was a damage roll that he was chancing there. He probably should have gone Breloom, but that's by the by. Had he tried to save his Linoon, which was a really cool bring with Quick Feet to pressure my Mega Alakazam, really, really cool bring. Had he tried to preserve that by going into his Clefable, he would have died. Had he gone into his Breloom, he would have got burnt. So again, we're back to this thing of, yes, Scald isn't high base power. No, it doesn't matter, because it will have that burn chance, which is great for team support. Out comes the Salamence. I don't feel like just clicking Scald here to try and get a burn. I go out into Tyranitar. That way you can guarantee to only get one DD, right? Even if he's Focus Sash, I'm going to break his Sash with Sandstorm Chip, and then I'm going to click Stone Edge, and I'm going to destroy his life. So he's going to only click DD once, and I stop him from getting +2 speed, which means my Keldeo with Scarf can still outspeed him. I'm going to double out here into Aegislash, because that thing's at -2 its special attack. It's not going to do anything. Presumably the Breloom is going to want to come in on a Stone Edge, and if something's going to get slept at this point, it might as well be Aegislash. So Aegislash gets put to bed, and if he wasn't Spore, then Breloom couldn't really touch me. And then I'm going to double back into Alakazam, because again, if he wants to click Bullet Seed there into my Aegislash, it's a bit of a choke because I'll eventually wake up as he's doing that. But okay, maybe he would kill my Alakazam, and then I'd be in to get the Icy Wind sweep with Keldeo before his Salamence ever has a chance to DD. If he doubles into Salamence, once again, he can't take 2 Psychics, so I've stopped him from ever getting to that +2 speed stat. and we're able to just pressure it. If he is Scarf, he can get 1 KO, which is fine, and then I can Icy Wind through him, and he probably was Scarf, but I would have taken the Earthquake anyway, and then I can Icy Wind through him. So Keldeo cleaning up as it was intended to do at the end of this game, after opening the door for itself in the early game by wearing down the Clefable with that burn, sand chip, everything else. And this is why I love Keldeo Tyranitar. Oh, Keldeo Tyranitar is so good because when you get a burn on something, you get a sand chip on something, they complement each other typing wise. They just, oh, it's hard to resist that offensive pressure. It really is. And then when you throw a Mega Alakazam into the equation, ooh, you want to go into your Dark type on my future site, which I've been spamming, as I said. Then I'll go into my Keldeo. You got to switch something in on Keldeo plus future site damage. There's nothing that's taking that. They don't exist, right? That's doing so much. Maybe like Shift Tree. Maybe that's what you got to go into. But then I click Secret Sword and that's dead. So yeah, just, I don't know. Fire team, fire combination there in that Dark fighting Psychic core. And I love this thing. I love this thing so much. So my advice to you guys with Keldeo would be draft it, but think about the team that you're drafting it on. Think about what complements it. I wish to God I had drafted this thing in EWT instead of Terrakion. It's infinitely better. I would have gone crazy in that season if I had this thing, I think, but it just didn't happen for me with Terrakion. Big regrets, because I was literally coin flipped between the two, and I was like, I always draft Keldeo, let's do Terrakion for something different. Big regrets. But yes, this is my verdict on Keldeo. My verdict is draft it. It is good. One last thing that we can have a little look at here, if it doesn't want me to log in. Is it going to want me to log in if I logged in at all today? All right, I'm just going to take that over to my second monitor because I don't want to give you guys all of my personal information, much as I love you all. I have one more thing to show you. I think you'll find it interesting. Maybe you won't. Maybe you won't, but I think you will. Here we go. Right, so this is my personal doc for my draft league shenanigans, and you can see here, hopefully you can see this well enough. I can't really see the dimensions, so I'm going to try and zoom in a bit. Okay, you can see here from the, let's see if we go to that. Oh, actually, you want to see this, the columns, right? Keldeo right now in Gen 8, this is up to date. This is all the games that I've played in. You guys can see my stats and stuff if you pause it. You want to see my win percentage of serve. It's not great. I'm not having a good generation at all. So here you can see my KOs. Right now, Keldeo is my kill leader by 1 ahead of Tyranitar. This generation, I've used it in 12 games. I've got 20 KOs within those 12 games, and it's only died 6 times. It only died in 50% of games I've brought it to. I've won 8 out of the 12 that I've brought it to, so it has a 66% win rate, which is just a little bit higher than my personal win rate, but not that much. But it has averaged 1.67 KOs per game. So this thing, it just trades. It really just trades. Same with me in Gen 7. It will just trade like 1 for 1, 2 for 1 in every game you bring it to. And when you partner it with stuff like Tyranitar, it really will put in work. Mega Alakazam, you can see these guys together. I mean, I've had Tyranitar in other leagues, so its stats are a little bit inflated. But you can see these guys together, 12 games and 9 games. They've got 20 KOs and 10 KOs. So, like, they're really just popping it off. Like, doing very well. Trading easily 1 per game. 30 KOs between them. Nice. So, I would highly recommend drafting this Mon. It has been my best Mon so far this generation, and I wouldn't be surprised if that continued for the whole generation, honestly, because I will continue to draft it and continue to spam it and continue to have joy with it because it's just fantastic. So, yeah, I'm going to round it off here because I am hot now, but I hope you guys enjoyed this. I really enjoyed getting to talk about one of my favorite Pokemon. Thank you so much for flipping around with me, and I'll catch you again next time.